The Court of Appeal in Akure, Ondo State, has upheld the death sentence of Dr. Ramon Adedoyin, the owner of Hilton Hotels, for his involvement in the death of Timothy Adegoke, a master's student at Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife. The appellate court confirmed the Osun State High Court's 2022 verdict, which found him guilty of murder. The appeal court insists that the judgment of the High Court of Osun State stands and Adedoyin was properly convicted and sentenced to death. However, the court set aside the forfeiture of Hilton Hotels and the order mandating Adedoyin to provide education scholarships to Adegoke's children.
Now, Timothy Adegoke, aged 37, was found dead in November 2021 at the Hilton Honours Hotel, Ile-Ife, after lodging there. Testimonies during the trial indicated that the hotel staff, under Adedoyin's instructions, wrapped Adegoke's corpse in a duvet and transported it in a Hilux van, allegedly driven by Adedoyin's son to the disposal site. A consultant pathologist, Dr. Jide Ologun, testified that Adegoke's death resulted from severe hemorrhage caused by traumatic injuries. Now, joining us is legal practitioner Jide Ologun. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
I mean, there's not much to argue with regards to the legal aspects of it, but let's first of all get your general, view on the appeal court's ruling, on this case.
The appeal court has proceeded to confirm the decision of the High Court. And in the criminal justice ecosystem, you have three important pillars. You talk about thorough investigation, which must have been done from the facts of the case. You talk about diligent prosecution, because sometimes you have facts that can lead you to prosecute a matter effectively, but if not effectively prosecuted, the defendant can still escape before a committed judiciary. And those three elements appear to have come together. And there are three levels to this case. We have the High Court, which has confirmed and convicted the defendant, and he proceeded to the Court of Appeal, and the Court of Appeal has confirmed that the High Court did well in prosecuting the case. Though there were other demands, prayers before the Court of Appeal, for instance, that the Hilton Honours Hotel be forfeited to the government. The appeal court did not grant that, and that scholarship should be set aside for the children of the deceased. That also was not granted. So the next level now is for Adedoyin to proceed to the Supreme Court. And from 1963, when we became a republic, Supreme Court remains the highest court in the land. So the courts involved in this, they've looked critically into the facts of the case, and the prosecutor must have done a very good job, particularly in a case like this that involves a high-profile personality that many would have expected could buy his way through justice. But right now, you can see justice saying, no, let's proceed. But once again, I'm still, touched by the fact that despite the progress made in this matter, the victim is gone, and the pain remains with the family, and of course the image with the nation, and of course a call to have a more secure society, particularly within a sector of the business environment. So that is where we are right now. So the option open to him is to proceed to the Supreme Court.
I mean, thanks for breaking it down, because that was one of the questions a lot of persons we did see, especially on the social media space, were asking what's next for him. And you said the next step is for him to proceed to the Supreme Court. We know the Supreme Court would definitely have the final say as well. But let's also look at some of the likely questions that I've been able to glance through. Nigerians are saying that it did take a long while before the court reached this decision, especially the appellate court. That why can you break it down for us and explain why it did take this long in order for this judgment to come out?
It's a bouquet of issues. the courts are busy, and if you monitored when even some justices of the Supreme Court started protesting by alleging high-handedness, corruption in that sector, and the fact that infrastructural support, training support, even internet support were not provided for them to function effectively. All those things add up to the delays we experience. By and large, there are many cases in the courts. And talking about justice, the honorable justices are wary not to be seen also to rush through the matters, because it must be thoroughly attended to, and all parties must be given what we call fair hearing in our constitution, you see, and that is why you see the matter moving from one level to the other. If it gets to the Supreme Court is also going to look at all this. But, I must say that now that we've come to the conclusion, for us as lawyers, we may not say that it's been delayed. You may be surprised to learn that perhaps now in the Supreme Court of Nigeria, cases of 2009 are the cases that may be given attention, and that is where you are. Yeah. We had a matter in the Supreme Court, and we showed up in February, and it was adjourned to December.
Wow.
Same year. And I was expressing my displeasure, and the lawyer said, Jide, barrister, go and do Thanksgiving. That you will have a date within the year. So that is our judicial system for us. We have a matter now in the High Court in Lagos State that started in 2011, and we have not even gone for trial. In fact, about 3 judges have handled the matter, and the last judge is now being prompted to proceed to the Court of Appeal. So it's like we are starting all over again. So when you look at those instances, you may not come to a conclusion that this has been delayed. But like I mentioned earlier, I expect that he should proceed to the Supreme Court, and that delicately, yeah. Because the facts are clear.
Yeah, I mean, I also, want that you speak a little bit more on the other pleas that, they have. One of them includes scholarship for the children of Timothy Adegoke. Why do you think that, the court would have denied them that? Because this is a father who had, I believe, 3 kids, and, now those kids have to fend for themselves, along with their mom. So why do you think the appeal court, maybe would have, denied, them that?
When it comes to the court system, you must be able to persuade the court to grant your prayers. We call them prayers. So, and that should have been fervently done at the trial level, because by the time you start proceeding to the appellate level, you are dealing more with issues of law and not of facts. And if you look at Section 131 of the Evidence Act 2011, it says that if you approach the court for some reliefs and you are alluding to some facts, the burden of proof is on you. So they must have looked at all those and look at the merits and then say, okay, we are not going to grant this. But basically, I think where justice lies is the fact that consequences must follow some actions. And that will also help us in preventing crime in the land. There is what we call reinforcement theory in industrial psychology, which means that what you don't punish gets worse. And so for those who may be feeling that anything goes in Nigeria, for cases like this, warnings should be going down that no. For instance, Nigeria is one of the countries in the world that even still practices capital punishment.
Yes.
But for China is, I think China has the highest profile of capital punishment. They don't joke with them because they have zero tolerance for crime in China. Even in the U.S., I think before Biden stepped out of the White House, he granted, he transmitted some death sentences to life and pardoned some. I think out of about 73, about 3 are left on death row, And, you talk about countries like, around the world, but by and large, given the concept of fundamental human rights and stuff, many countries are departing from capital punishment. But I doubt if any country has departed from the fact that there must be consequences for crime. And that is where we are right now. So we monitor the case. Like I said, he has the option of proceeding to the Supreme Court, perhaps before 1963. If you are not satisfied with the decision of the Supreme Court, then you appeal further to the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council in the UK. But since we became a republic, now it ends at the Supreme Court. So what Supreme Court says will be final. And again, even for those who are on death row in Nigeria, how many have been executed? Many governors are not comfortable with signing with the red ink. So you find some of them just there, waiting and waiting and waiting, and perhaps sometimes pardon comes from somewhere. So those are the issues. But we must rid our land of some crime. I doubt if there is any society in the world that is corruption-free, but at least you deal with it. You saw what happened in South Korea in terms of governance, where the leader was impeached, and he was apprehended while trying to escape. So those are issues. We must give the rule of law its right of place, because on matters like this, you never can tell how many victims have gone down the drain without being discovered. But unfortunately, in the case of the young man, it backfired. And again, when you look at the facts, the involvement of family members and things is quite traumatic.
What does that tell you? Because I've always questioned the extent with which we interrogate these issues. A lot of times, we leave the conversations at the possibility of it being a ritual killing or something of that sort. But there's never really any confirmation or clarity on exactly what these cases are founded on. We're still following the Timileyin Ajayi, I think, in Nasarawa State, I believe, that the most recent one that happened in the early days of the year. But a lot of times, when we hear of these type of murders, nobody really understands what motivated it. So in this particular case, now you've mentioned the involvement of family members and also even hotel staff. What does that say to you?
There is what you call modeling and influence. Traditionally, I am a Christian by God's grace, so my children are also in that line. But it may not be the same in other climes. In the olden days, if you are incidentally a child of a herbalist, definitely you toe that line until perhaps you encounter the light somewhere along the line. And so and I'm speaking now without prejudice, speaking on the basis of the conclusions of the courts of the land. So if he has been found guilty of these crimes, then you can easily tell the climb he belongs to in the society. And of course, you're expected to carry your children along.
What climb are you referring to?
When you talk about ritual killings, definitely, I'm not sure it's within the Christian climb or Islamic climb or even traditional climb. So it has to be occultic. And we cannot rule out occultism in the country, you see, because traditionally speaking, when you find situations like that, it's either to activate wealth, deceptively so, or reinforce wealth. I recall the case of a young chap in Osun State, Soliu, who killed his girlfriend because he wanted to make money. He just mentioned the case of Timileyin now. Even though he's not remorseful, why will you cut off the head of a youth couple? I mean, someone you claim is your girlfriend, cut the body into pieces. For what purpose? And we are reading about Yahoo Plus, and things like that. So it's really a serious issue in the society. And, you know, I spoke about reinforcement theory. So if at this point in time, the principal in this matter now has already introduced the child into that line. So you can imagine who the child will grow up to become, you see. And in the sector of corruption, you also saw the Abacha family and how they killed. And we don't have the time to go into some West African countries where leadership translates from father to son, and son carries on. You know, so those are issues. Those are issues. And by and large, the assignment of the government has been clearly stated in Section 15, subsection 5 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, that gives us a capsule mandate that the state shall abolish corrupt practices and abuse of office. So, and that is when you can also fulfill the mandate in Section 14, subsection 2 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, that states clearly that the security and the welfare of the citizens shall be the primary purpose of government. In fact, in respect of this case, when this landmark case happened, we read about how some students have disappeared mysteriously in that institution. And it's also likely that some students would have been lured into that group to carry out the nefarious activity. So we still have a lot to do in terms of spreading the safety net to prevent further crimes, you know, and that is not even limited to his university. There was a time in the OAU when some students were killed, and there were insinuations that the leadership was in support. So these are issues of our time, and let me bring it to the scripture. What the scripture says is that righteousness exalts a nation, and sin is a reproach to a people. So we need righteousness in this land. When you pollute the land, you invite curses upon the land.
Let's also look at the judiciary in handling cases like this, and cases that also abound beyond this particular one. Do you see the judiciary, let's say, making some necessary adjustments? I mean, you just talked about how reasons why cases can go as far as a year, 2 years, because the judiciary is busy. There are a lot of, let's call it backlog of cases that haven't been, you know, attended to. Is there any possibility that Nigeria will get past that level where courts can actually speed up, you know, issues and cases like this? Because we've seen situations where some suspects who have not been proven guilty languish or stay in jail for so long a time. I mean, I was talking to a young man who said he had been in jail for just a petty issue, which he wasn't even part of. But because he was there, he was also picked up. And he stayed in jail for nothing more than about almost 2 years before, you know, a good Samaritan who usually combs around the prisons to help, as it were, to help prisoners, you know, speed up their cases, came in contact with him and asked him what happened. And that is what helped him to see the day of light. So can we go past this level in Nigeria's judiciary so that we can finally, you know, handle cases as they come and not keep them for 2 to 3 years, which will also affect the prisoners who may, in some cases, be innocent?
Absolutely, and it's a holistic matter. Stakeholders must be involved. Like I said, except the judge decides to visit the correctional centers to find out those who have been detained there, their status, and see what can be done. The judge is busy in the courts, attending to matters that are brought to the court, and I know some lawyers go around to try and assist. It's also about the system we have. I may suggest that the correctional centers also should upscale by profiling the inmates and making recommendations And I can also propose to the National Assembly, by virtue of Section 4 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, that says that the National Assembly has power to make laws for the peace, orderliness, and good government in the country. To make laws that, okay, if anyone is kept in the custodial facility, it should not be more than this time. And if the person is not arraigned in court for prosecution, you let the person go. Because it's a, we have read recently about even the alleged rot in that system. In the case of Bobrisky, even that is being pushed aside now, though we are still monitoring because the senior civil, Femi Falana, is proceeding to court against a very dark man. So those are issues. It's about the system we have. You go to the Ministry of Internal Affairs, you talk about getting your international passport, renewing your international passports. There are several laws facilitating prompt attention, but do you enjoy the prompt attention? So it's about the system we run. And that is why I said that it's critical that we implement Section 15, Section 5 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, that says clearly that the state shall abolish corrupt practice and abuse of office. As we speak right now, you are likely to have experienced the fact that you have an application with government, it sits down on a table, an application that should be treated in 3 hours. It's there for 9 months. You see, at a point you start tracing. So we need to get serious. You talk about the NIN issue. Mistakes are made, you are called to pay for it. So we need to really create a business-friendly environment with a high-profile ease of doing business. So by and large, the judiciary is trying to attend to this, and then the attention of the governor can be brought by the Attorney General of the state to say, okay, let's go and visit so. So it's a function of networking, and he has the prerogative to release. Look at the case in Osun State that came on the social media, that somebody who stole fowl was handed too hard a justice. I understand the guy is back there now because even after being released, he committed another crime. So these are issues. We need to profile effectively and ensure that we sanitize that system. I was reading recently that the feeding allowance is to be lifted from, is it 750 to 1,005? Imagine what they go through in that sector. And again, reports came out that if you are wealthy enough, you can be kept there and not kept there, if you can pay your way through. So it's a systemic matter indeed.
Yeah. I also want to know if this is one example, where you maybe Nigerians maybe should give kudos to the judiciary for, like you described, not, bending the law, to favor someone with some level of affluence. Some people have mentioned that he possibly was also going to be vying for the seat of the next Oni of Ife and all that. So this is, a high-profile individual. Should the judiciary be celebrated, or is this simply the way that things should really be? And there's nothing, you shouldn't celebrate a fish for swimming in the first place.
When you talk about celebrating the judiciary is doing what the judiciary should do. What are we celebrating? And I say that respectfully. For instance, I read at a time of a governor commissioning the 3 poles of electricity, and you publish that in the media. What is in that? You see, it's what you are expected to do. So I will just say I'm happy that the judiciary is functional, but celebrate, I will not celebrate.
Yeah.
Yes.
And is it maybe also high time that because you've spoken a little bit about the possibility of ritual killings, but again, I still would say that I don't know that we have gotten proper confirmation, that exactly is what is going on. Because for me, I've always been really shocked that in 2025, in the giant of Africa, that is still the pathway with which people are either making money or, retaining money or gaining political, power and all of that. In 2025, this is something that was popular in the early 90s in Nigeria. So we haven't really grown beyond, that time as a society. That's what it means. But still, we don't have any confirmation, that these things are actually real, that these things actually work, that this is the reason that these murders, happen. But somehow, some way, it seems to be more popular in the Southwest. Is that something of concern, for residents of the Southwest?
Perhaps more reported in the Southwest, because these cases are across the country. When you talk about the banditry, the kidnapping and everything, killings are involved. See, every soul belongs to God. So you don't have a right to take a soul extrajudicially because it's also subject to the laws of the land. So it's a matter of concern. But you know what I've said? In a community of poverty, crises are inevitable. And that is where we found ourselves now. People believing that through ritual, you can get rich or reinforce your wealth or service your power base. And let me say this here. I have met Dr. Ramon Adedoyin one-on-one. He came somewhere for a patronage, and I didn't have a sound impression, particularly when I saw his entourage, guys with half-shaved head and things like that. I had my reservations. You see, so these are issues. So it's all about our system. It's about what you have inclined to. It's now for the society, the essence of having the regulatory structure that we call government is to regulate relationships in a way that my lifestyle does not constitute a threat to your lifestyle. You see? So whether we have departed from where we were, I will answer that psychologically. Maybe some have grown out of it and some are growing into it. I'm in the threshold of 60 years of age. There are things that don't thrill me anymore. That used to thrill me.
Yeah.
I'm not out to impress anybody now. Or I live my life. I worship my God. As I grow, I plan my...
Yeah, like you said,
like someone was joking that at a particular age, you are the passing the boarding gates. So those are issues. But for some now, they are desperate about that wealth. Yeah. They just want to. It's either that wealth or nothing. And how it comes,
they don't care.
They don't care. So these are issues. Recently, the wife of a top retired police officer was kidnapped. Thank God, she's been rescued, and the guys taken out. Like we say in police, they were neutralized. Yeah. So this is about our society. It's about our society. And Christianity is trying, and I know I've listened to some Islamic clerics that call for righteousness in the society. But the system also must promote that righteousness. There's this saying in the assumptive environment that when the desirable is not available, the available becomes desirable. Yeah. So if we upscale the system we have, the economy we have, the safety net for citizens, we'll be able to tame some of these things, There are some countries of the world where it's marginal, having experienced maybe such are associated with people with psychotic problems, not with social and economic problems. And I can let you know, like I said, there are many unreported cases, and some of them fade away with the light. I still recall Clifford Oji, have you forgotten, under the bridge along the International Airport Road. So these are issues in our society. But with this judicial intervention, definitely some signals will be sent out. And I expect that this also should be well published. It has no interference with the court system. The decision has been given, now waiting for the Supreme Court, because sometimes it's only probably the elite that will read about it. So I don't mind if in all the regions of the country, this decision is translated into native language. You know, where somebody was exchanging, was chatting with me on this orientation about not going to scoop fuel when a tanker falls. And the person replied, but the people who are concerned, are they on social media?
That's it.
Exactly.
To be honest, Mr. Jide, there's a lot that I think we really need to do, but unfortunately, we're told that our time is out. But thank you so much. I think we've had a very, very, let's say, comprehensive, well-rounded conversation around this situation concerning this issue. And hopefully we'll get to hear, like you've predicted. I wouldn't say predicted, I would say like you said, concerning the Supreme Court. Yeah. Thanks for your time. Thank you for joining us. Thank you.
God bless Nigeria.